please don't ever feel pressured into getting a curly cut if that is not for you. If you love your blown out haircuts, absolutely wonderful. There are people who love their curly cuts. That's the beauty of having professionals that do all kinds of different things, that we can go to the one that suits us.
So back in like April, May, content started showing up on the internet where people were like, oh my God, I follow Black Girl Curls. And I had terrible split ends. At this point, it was only the ends. And I believed it was because curly cuts didn't address all the ends. And I, like a lot of people were like, oh my God, like why isn't Black Girl Curls saying anything? Like these people are telling them they're having problems, like why aren't they saying anything? That kind of changed in August. In August, I was getting my own curly cut. So I had time while I was under the dryer to watch a live in its entirety where Black Girl Curls actually titled it, addressing some influencers. I was like, oh, that's interesting because people keep saying Black Girl Curls didn't address this. And here's this whole live addressing curly cuts. I have a lot more to say on this topic. I keep hoping it will go away. But right now I'm recording this in mid-December and there's no letting up. It's just like first it was the curly cuts, now it's leave-ins, deep conditioners, shampoos. So I have a lot I want to say. Like I said, it's mid-December. I have little kids. I need to go play Santa's elf. But I just felt compelled to go back and revisit that live I saw of Black Girl Curls, allegedly not answering people's questions, and put together some clips where they are directly answering people's questions. And what I want to know from you is, like, what is the question at hand now? Because if you ask the question, why does the 30-day hair detox, no butters, no oils method damage people's hair? That's not really a question. Because as much as people would like to say that this is a method, I looked at the most current list I have. There are 10 shampoos, about 13 conditioners, and over 30 styling products on that list. The styling products include, leave-ins, foams, creams, gels. So if you take one shampoo, one conditioner, and one styler, there are over 3,000 different ways to make a wash day. So going to somebody and say, tell me why all these 3,000 different ways to combine these products are damaging people's hair, like that's not a real conversation that anybody could actually have. So there's that. But I want to know, like, people want a response from Black Girl Curls right now. What is the question that's being asked? Because back when this live was done in June, the question was, why don't curly cuts address all the split ends? And they answered it. So what's the question? And people didn't get to the root of their problems because it was tunnel visioned on curly cuts. It wasn't until some point after that live when people were like, oh, wait, no, it's not just the curly cuts. And I'm nervous that some people are going to fix their hair with leave-in and deep conditioners, and others are going to realize it's just masking a deeper problem. But anyway, yeah, so go ahead. I'm going to open the comment section. What is the response you are looking for? What is the question that you would like Black Girl Curls to answer? I have no connection with them, but I'm just curious because I don't know what the resolution is at this point. My background is in engineering and project management, so I'm always looking for like solutions. How do we get to the end? What is the end game? Like, what tasks do we need to do to get to the end? But what is the question? We can start there.
The cutting technique that we're teaching is a fundamental bob. And so what changes would you like for us to make? Because the what we're talking about today is that conversation. The changes that need to be made are the communication and turning away clients that are not curly cut clients. I can also have direct conversations with the stylist of whether it needs to be additional training, additional mentoring, additional anything, but nothing gets solved by playing a game of telephone. But because I was not your stylist and I don't know the hair that came into the salon, I can only speak off of my 13 years of experience. Now, again, I wasn't present in what was happening in your appointments, so I don't know. And because, again, I don't know who the stylists are, I can't speak to the stylists. But there's no slide cutting, there's no point cutting, there's no twisting and cutting, there's nothing that is identifiable in terms of what would create a split end. And so again, when we have these kind of round robin conversations in public, we can't really answer the question. You keep asking us why, and we're asking for more information, and we're not getting the additional information that we need to actually determine what the heck happened.
Which is why we ask a lot of questions in public that people get so tight about. But if we don't have a full scope and depth and breadth of what it is that you're trying to explain to us, then we're not able to give a concise answer.
Our communication and asking questions, ask better questions, is so important. I personally would stop and say, which one is your priority? Do you want to keep length? And we can do this over the course, again, of 4 to 6 haircuts, sometimes even more, depending upon the condition of the hair that came into the salon. And let me go back to what I said initially. There's oftentimes where that hair is not necessarily in the condition we think it is. We're just so used to putting polymer, oil, emollient-based things that create a feeling of our hair. And when we start to pull that out, that hair is not what we think it is. And we see it regularly. And again, this is not a shade or a tea. This is just years and years of hands and hair experience. And so when we go in and we're cutting, and that client says, okay, I want to keep my hair long, but I want to do this. There's oftentimes those clients need 5 to 6 inches off because they haven't had a consistent relationship with a stylist previously. And when we say consistent, that is haircuts every 10 to 12 weeks. That does not mean one haircut a quarter, unless you've been approved for that. I have some clients who've been approved for that because they've come back to 2 or 3 haircuts and said the hair's in amazing condition. Absolutely, you can go 16 weeks. And so when we get on that type of consistency and we're moving it short, like regularly, we're moving an inch each time, we can still have issues in a year. If you have said, okay, we're going to take off everything that we need to take off, and then we're going to be consistent at 10 to 12 weeks, cool. That is usually, again, a communication issue between the client and the stylist. I will say this again. I want everybody to record me, like put your screenshot on and record me saying this. It can also be an issue with the stylist. I am not a protective person over here. It can be very much the stylist did not take off what was necessary. It can be very much that the stylist did not use fundamental cutting techniques to properly part, cut, and be very strategic about that hair. Wholeheartedly, the stylist could have jacked it up. They could have jacked up, they could have fumbled the ball. Absolutely. Anybody who is trained by us usually they take a 2-day class. Previously, our OG stylist took a 3-day class. They do have opportunities that have consistent education going forward. They have the opportunities to be in digital education with us where we can hone and tweak and fix anything that there may be holes in their education. It's the same with every profession. It's the same with straight hair cutters. It's the same with everybody else. There's some people who are bomb at what they do, and there's some people who are not bomb at what they do. At the end of the day, all of these people who took this training are running independent styling businesses. They have taken oftentimes more than just Cut It Kinky. They've taken Rizzo, they've taken Diva, they've taken Ouida, they've taken Carlisto, they've taken straight hair cutting classes, they've taken pixie classes, they've taken all these classes. Cut It Kinky is a tool in their toolbox. So I am fully admitting, encouraging, understanding that the stylist could have fumbled the bag, and specifically because I don't know who it was, I can't be like, DM the person, be like, hey, what's up? What happened? Tell me your side of the story. I can't do that. And but to be honest, I will.
To the inbox, it's been bought up on lives. Like this wasn't a conversation, or this wasn't addressed in the email. It wasn't addressed in an inbox conversation. So this isn't the venue to be able to address that type of conversation that actually requires back and forth dialogue, and sometimes even pictures, just so there's a general understanding of what occurred.
I hear you. And to be honest, I'm getting bits and pieces of the story. I'm really getting bits and pieces of the story. I don't know your intervals. I don't know how much was taken up. As I said, I am pulling straws from the wind. Also, I want to dispel the myth that curly cutting specifically is only for shape and not for maintenance. Because again, going back to the purpose of cutting hair, It's number one, for maintaining the ends of the hair. Whenever a stylist picks up a pair of shears, and this is for stylists and clients alike, we are maintaining and maintaining every single piece of hair on the head. We are moving in a strategic manner from base, balancing that base out, and creating a look at the top of the head when we go between the occipital bone and the parietal ridge. You don't feel like the concerns have been addressed. When the concerns are lobbied to the proper parties, yes, they are addressed. I'm the proper party. This is the only space that I've ever had a conversation with you. I've never had an email from you. And maybe your contingent of people. Maybe you want to be the contingent of people's representative. I am here to sit down. And where are you in the world? Because I have a serious travel schedule for the next 6 months. I'm willing to meet with you in person. I'm willing to get my hands in your hair in person. The concern is not the cutting technique. We're teaching foundational cutting, ma'am. We're teaching foundational cutting. These are the same haircuts, the absolute same haircuts. There is no special do this, do that that's being taught. If you feel like the concerns haven't been addressed, please bring them to the person who can address them. Not me. Not a hit piece, not a hit piece on YouTube, because again, I don't do YouTube. And I follow the Myleik philosophy of anything not said to me is unsaid, especially when it's said for views, likes, and entertainment. But what I will say again is if you had an experience that you didn't like, please find and work with somebody that you like. But I guess my challenge becomes when we turn it into entertainment. That is really where I stop. Because we also don't, there's some things, this is getting off topic. I'm gonna get back on topic in a minute. There are definitely some things that are done that we would never walk up to somebody if we saw them in person and do or say. Not because we're afraid of the person's reaction, and not because of anything else, but because somehow being behind the screen gives us a lot more courage. And I'm not saying I'm exempt from it, because I've had my moments of saying some shit and I said, ooh, I shouldn't have said that. And you know what I did? I apologized. I apologized deeply and I apologized profusely. So again, do the thing that you're desiring. But a cut is a cut is a cut.
The hair is here.
And what I also seen, I just saw, again, I don't know you. I have not been in your hair. I can only go from the things that I see on social media. You just went day 9 with the dude, which I think is amazing, because some weeks you gotta go. But when you do things like that, I promise y'all, I need a haircut badly. I'm with these kids this summer. These ends is trash because I haven't had haircuts in 6 months. But the actions that we take with our own hair contribute. They contribute. And so if you want to have a conversation, my inbox is open. We can Zoom. I'm cool. But what I'm not going to do is speculate. I would love to have a conversation with you, but since we're talking here, this is us being face to face. So what happened when the split ends that lived in your hair after getting a year's worth of curly cuts? I'm not your stylist. I'm going to be very honest. I'm not your stylist. And to be honest, I don't know who your stylist was. And that is one of the things that we have started to implement. As somebody said that we should change our policies, we started to implement our policies of, if you have a challenge with your curl artist, contact Cut It Kinky directly. And when you're contacting Cut It Kinky, you're contacting me. Because one thing that I actually have done, not with you, but somebody else in the DMs, was actually, we had a 2-hour DM conversation that got down to the bottom of the challenge she was facing with the stylist, because y'all keep giving this refrain that you're not the only people, so it must be made public. Okay, understood. We have no issue with you making it public. We hear that you had a year of curly cuts with a Cut It Kinky stylist. You still had split ends. And so what about those cuts, other than the stylist not taking off enough length for you, was the challenge? Because the challenge is that the hairstylist is with your hair for 2 to 3 hours. The hairstylist is with your hair for 2 to 3 hours per session. When you go home, you are with your hair. And so what I want to understand is, and I really broke down for you specifically the reasons that you can still have split ends after having a haircut. There's nothing in the cutting technique. There is no slide cutting, which somebody slide cut my hair in 2011 and I was hella traumatized, because that is a technique that can cause split ends. There is no slide cutting. There is no twisting that hair and cutting into it. There is no razor cutting. There is nothing conceivably in the actual fundamental cutting technique that would cause split ends beyond the hairstylist themselves, the hairstylist either having dull shears or not removing enough hair at the ends. Those are the two things. The shears open and they close. They open and they close. So unless that shear was dragging along that strand, which is not a part of Cut It Kinky education. If you're not cutting clean across due to cutting into curls, that not cause splitting. One, I guess the assumption is we're not cutting clear across. And I think that's the first assumption here. So, let's break down hair cutting. I'm about to teach a hair cutting class, y'all. I might need to go get a pair of shears and a stand. There are three ways to hold hair when cutting hair. You can hold it horizontal, you can hold it vertical, you can hold it diagonal. Horizontal cutting builds up the most weight. Vertical cutting removes length while reducing weight. Diagonal cutting retains weight and length at the top, reduces length and weight at the bottom of the parting. And so in Cut It Kinky technique, we are doing a lot of vertical parting because of weight distribution and hair that is three-dimensional. And so we are cutting in traditional partings, going in, cutting clean and clear across. Now, the challenge comes in when a client comes into the salon and their hair does not come to the point of everybody else's hair, all the other hairs on their head. So say you've got an even shape here that we have cut completely across, and the top is half the length than what's going on back here, because that is a super common challenge that we find when clients are coming into the salon. That particular challenge takes anywhere from 6 to 36 months, depending upon how extreme it is and how that client's hair grows. Now, if we're cutting curl by curl, which we actually absolutely rarely do in Cut It Kinky, rarely are cutting curl by curl and Cut It Kinky, unless it's like a point to here, and that part that gets ate up back there that we had a relaxer, and that client, you pick up that curl, you can see it, and you can take it. And what happens is, yes, we're cutting clean across with the same cutting method that you're going this way and just cutting somebody's indiscriminately straight across. You can pick up a curl and cut that one. Cutting that hair, the act of taking the shears, opening and closing them, does not create a split end. That creates an even end to take off all damage that's happening. And what that does is, when the client is not, how many people come in, I would love to cut them in a taper. Because the condition of their hair says so. But as a curly stylist that respects my clients and their desire not to cut half of their hair off, I give them and so do Cut It Kinky stylists, because this is what they're taught. They give them a forecasting plan of what it's going to take to get to their goals. So if you're wanting to take all the client's hair off and the client says yes, absolutely. I'm jumping for joy that you're going to let me take that taper. But there's also those same clients. We see them with the straight hair stylist on the internet where they leave that hole right there. And they leave that hole right there. And they make that haircut as cohesive as they can. And they put their clients on a plan. Absolutely. So there's nothing inside of the actual technique that we're teaching in class, that we are teaching in class, that is contributing to split ends. And so again, I wasn't at these appointments. I don't even know who these stylists are. So I can't comment on what happened in the appointment. Send it all to me. I ask you that. So again, I can then address it. Can't address what I can't, I don't know. Today's discussion was necessary. Today's discussion was clear. If that brings anybody to the point of bringing it to the inbox, great. Great. I appreciate that. Because it cannot be solved without it going to the proper channels.
And YouTube is not the channel.